Hello, Internet. This is Kopitiam Council, new week and new episode. And as always, I'm Haffisz.
And I'm Adi. Welcome back to another episode. We have a lot of exciting series of news, but Hafiz, what do we have for right now?
So we're going to start domestically first, which is the recent by-election of KKB, Kuala Kota Baru, right?
Kubu Baru.
Kuala Kubu Baru. I'm just testing Adi right now. It is recently and won by no surprise, which is the incumbent of DAP. What this story entails, Adi?
Okay, so what I can tell here is is that this seems to be sort of a rematch for Pakatan Harapan here, considering their performance in the last six state election back then. So I think this was like a way to reinvigorate some of that momentum. And considering that the incumbent, who was the Gusto A to Ngako Ming, the minister, will face a lot of backlash at the time when he was proposing a UNESCO World Heritage Site, much to a lot of the Perikatan National's charging. This was more to just stoke sentiments, and I think this was a test for DAP and Pakatan Harapan to show that they still have it when it comes to gathering support. But I think this also highlights another thing, is that Perikatan Nasional, I think, like we've mentioned before, has hit a glass ceiling here when it comes to gathering support from non-Malays, not from Malaya. And do you think they've hit their ceiling already? Because we did say back that they've hit the upper limit of how much supporters they could get. They can draw from the Malay population, the Malaya population. Now they seem to be playing with another crowd of people that aren't exactly their target demographic.
Well, I think we already mentioned this in the recent state elections last time, that PN has picked its Malay majority voters, especially in KKB. This is astonishingly, even the early votes by the civil servants, the armies, the police, it's HBN actually won the early counting. So it's very, very unlike PHBN. Maybe that's the factor of BN can claim credit over there because PH never done that before. So this is something a slap on the face or PN, where they want to champion the every single cohort of Malay votes. If they define it with races, yes, age group, and this one by early votes. So this one, they already lost in the early countings, and what follows in terms of the old races, PHBN also win in every court. So you can get from Malay, from Chinese, from Indian, and even orang asli. So it's and really exhausted all their mantra to lure all these Malay voters, and now it's somewhat this strategy backfired to them because it locks them into just one target market, the Malays, the conservative Malays, to be specific. So you would, in this regard, you would definitely reject the Indian, the Chinese, and also the on the fence Malay. So which is apparently, I think, contributed to the swing in the votes that we gain from, especially on the Malay cohorts there.
Yeah, and I think even some members in Perikatan Nasional even knew that they've kind of hit their stride long ago with the sixth election. I mean, when you look at the campaign trail, you saw that PAS wasn't really that active in terms of campaigning, but even though PAS is obviously the stronger member of the coalition between them and Bersatu. So to see them that they weren't exactly active on the field compared to their counterparts in Bersatu, or not even being really there, I think they were only there to the last leg of the campaign season. That it shows that I think they also knew that, what use is there winning, trying to waste a lot of resources in a by-election that is very much in favor for a group of people that don't really hasn't really been captured by the sentiment or the rhetoric made by PAS or Bersatu. But I think another interesting to note here, I think this shows that even like you mentioned, conservative Malays, right, was the target demographic. But Azman Ali himself from Perikatan Nasional was kind of spearheading the campaign this time, and we all know that he is not really cut off the same cloth as the traditional conservative Malay voter base. He himself is quite a progressive individual. I mean, you can say what you like about him when it comes to Nathan Sheraton and his questionable loyalty, but you can tell that he is someone who is a bit more on the cosmopolitan, metropolitan side here, and it shows that he is not able to manage this kind of election or in this kind of climate. Maybe it's just a lack of experience really in dealing with an area or even a state that has really been historically quite resilient to a lot of these Malay, conservative Malay rhetoric. I mean, they have been very resilient towards UMNO from the past, and a lot of these Bersatu people were from the UMNO stock. So I think they never really were able to crack the code historically, and that kind of translates into them not being able to leverage on anything. They didn't really have that much experience in dealing with winning in Sarawak and constituencies. So perhaps that is also a factor that played into their performance in the by-election here. What do you think?
Well, KKB is quite a comparison if we wanna, because we are from Sabah, to our listeners, and I'm quite familiar with Tanjung Aru. Like the similarity is, Adi, that the past loons from KKB, they are all Chinese. So I think it was a big gamble for Perikatan Nasional to field the Malay candidates, despite there's a gerakan. So now there's a useless gerakan there they can even offer a candidate for PN, so to speak. So in a way that it's similar, and then I think to compare with the last state election, we need to bear in mind that it's been more than a year. So the Madani effect taking place right now, I think you can just credit to a little bit the Madani initiative here and there to win the votes, the racket as well. So back in, it was very fresh. It was like, I think 6 months after the general election. So the effects not kicking in yet. But now, more than 1 year, it's pretty much KKB getting the hit of, okay, what Madani is and how Anwar at helm. And this is definitely the direct factor of the charisma of figure like Anwar Ibrahim. So the thing that I want to highlight idea about KKB is that in comparison to the last state election, there's only 7% difference in terms of voters turnout. So it's not a huge difference. People may say that's a lot of, I think 50% voters will only reach, I think, around 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. But it turns out that's the normal average for this particular constituent. So basically what happened is the intensity is the same. It's just there's a clear swing from PN to Pakatan. This is again Madani, older Madani, matured Madani that already known by the people of KKB. And this is, I think, a vote of confidence in a way what Ibrahim is looking for. So, to legitimize this government, and then also maybe in the future we can see more confidence in terms of how we're going to introduce more policy restructuring the economy. They already mentioned about retargeting subsidies and all this whatnot, but I think there will be more knowing that on the ground people already shifted to their side. What do you think?
I like the word you mentioned that this is a mature Madani government. It's more like how you say, a Madani that seems to found its footing already at last after floundering in the 6th election. So, I mean, not really the same family, but it was a very huge, shocking result for them in terms of performance. But I do like to think that when you say that people are becoming more used to the idea of the administration of online writing, it does give more credence to the idea of stability here, because I think at this point, voters, they are not decided. A lot of voters have been making their choices based on the aspect of stability, right? And not that the Malaysian economy is able to be stabilized, is able to perform regionally and even internationally, so that it can translate into the well-being of most Malaysians. And I think that was on the agenda for a lot of the KKB voters, because when you look at, like I mentioned, the voters traditionally Chinese, similar to what you said in Tanjung Aru, this is a demographic that I think is either used to a particular type of candidate or used to a particular brand of politics, which it seems to emphasize a lot more on reform, a lot more on economic well-being. The more, how do you explain, the more intangible rhetoric, which seems to be more of a specialty for Pakatan Harapan. They are very good at playing the whole rhetoric of the intangible when it comes to promising particular reforms, increasing the economic stability of the country. That seems to work with their kind of demographic compared to Perikatan Nasional, which always relies, their components traditionally relying on religious and racial sentiment rather than affairs of administration. So I think there is a huge divide here, and I think there's a very long-standing divide from even before. You could call it the urban-rural divide, you could call it a racial divide, you could even call it an economic divide. But it means that there are different tools of rhetoric here that works in particular areas. But I think, right, when it comes to mileage, if you want to go for the former, which is about the intangible, that seems to only be as good as long as you are able to perform. Whereas usually the rhetoric deployed by us, Bersatu, UMNO, those things are a bit more long-lasting. They have a longer shelf life when it comes to producing results in the elections. But maybe the message has come across a bit clearer for Pakatan Harapan. That in a way, the line is kind of drawn in the sand already. Each group already knows what their brand is, what they really want to talk about in the rallies or in the charamas. So I think, in a way, the voter base is also very much drawn, and the line is drawn in the sand. And I think it's very hard to tip the needle even further from there.
If there's one positive takeaway for Perikatan Nasional from this loss, Adi, is that below the votes for below 30 years old are all majority for Perikatan Nasional. So Perikatan Nasional has everything to look forward to in the future, but it's gonna be, only time can tell. Predicting from trajectory all this below 30 years old up until the youngest as 18 years old, they are all for PN. You might argue that this is the TikTok crowd, but hey, they are also eligible to vote, and that valid as well, as much as those who are in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So this is a huge hurdle for Madani government if they want to win the next general election. Yes, it's 3 years from now, but those who are 18 years old now, it's gonna be around 2021, and then there will be more upcoming 18 years old, 19 years old also in the next 3 years. So how they're gonna fight for this? The war of social media needs to be won. Any criticisms of our government now being a draconian law, so they can shut all these influences for that sided with Perikatan Nasional needs to be addressed. It definitely cannot just be swept under the carpet, because eventually, any story, any argument that is being repeated enough, it will become the truth, at least for certain demographic. And that demographic, I meant those who are under 30 years old. So we need to be careful with this. PH and BN needs to be careful with this if they want to expand their reach into the 30s and below. Because otherwise, this is a game that there's a certain seat, there were more youth in certain areas. So it's gonna be a very deal, especially if it's more youth and more rural side. Let's say for seats in Kelantan, for example, I believe that most of those seats are full of youth, and they are all in the rural areas, especially in Gomusang and whatnot. So that's particularly where I think PH can look forward. PN, but PH need to handle fully here. Another thing also, I did that. PN, I think, in terms of, we mentioned that the target market, how they exhausted of strategy here, but another one that I think, a missed opportunity for PN also to get in the ring and talk about current issues of policy debates that we are all yearning for. Yes, it's quite clear that the target market is just simply those who are conservative Malay. So as long as you talk about religion or 3R, simplistically. But I think the jump vote that we talk about, like how they exhausted their strategy. I think this is very easy to go in. I think they have some figures that they can put forward and talk about this that can head to head with maybe Rafizi or Fahmi Fazil. I mean, one Faisal is very loud on his socials. Why he never do the same on the ground and maybe more about policies, facts to facts, or this kind of thing. So I think it's a missed opportunity for Perikatan Nasional not to go in the ring and let PH dominate the ring when it comes to policy debates and whatnot, because the fence sitting voters, they're still gonna talk. I mean, this, and only people who were already the fans of PH and BN, this is gonna look. We are winning every argument that there are. So why we need to be scared of this? So it's gonna be general election, Adi, if these projections were to become true.
So when it comes to when you mentioned the whole public discourse and policy debates, I think most of it would be carried by the Bersatu party members rather than PAS. Bersatu carries more of that kind of stock that, like Azmin Ali, which are more cosmopolitan, that can think on that level. PAS, I think they know what they are good at, and I don't think they're trying to get out of their comfort zone because they've already milked the rhetoric that they have with to great effect, to great success. So I think it would mostly be Bersatu leading the charge there. But this comes to the idea that when it comes to attracting a newer voter base, that means Bersatu would be kind of working alone here. But at the same time, it shows that they need to be a bit more versatile within PN itself. Because PAS, I think, like I said, they are comfortable with what they are right now. So it seems that Bersatu needs to shift a bit of the rhetoric to tip the needle to attract newer voters. Because I recall when the by-election that they were becoming more reliant on non-Malay voters to bring in. But of course, they were unsuccessful in quoting them. So this would be kind of a litmus test to see how Bersatu and works within the PN framework. Are they more beholden to the past narrative, or can they actually be a bit more flexible or able to spread its wings, garner more support? But then again, that would always carry a lot of baggage, that when people come to see Bersatu, then they'll associate immediately that past is somehow in the picture. So it's kind of a balancing act, saying that people who already have concerns or grievances about past, Bersatu would have to come in to play as a sort of like a mediator to say that, hey, no, past is actually okay. That is, we can give you that kind of guarantee, that insurance that you won't be affected by any of these kind of rhetoric that does worry you or any kind of grievances that you have. So Bersatu would kind of be playing two games here, a game of attracting new voters, but at the same time, a game of giving some kind of assurance to those new voters as well. So it's a two-pronged approach that they do need to approach going further in if they want to move if different kinds of voters, because we mentioned they have sort of peaked in terms of attracting the conservative Malays. They need to now move towards a more cosmopolitan, more urban centric voters who tend to see things beyond the three R's issues.
Yeah, I think people, apart from PAS, we talk about Bersatu Gerakan, or if there are any other party in the Perikatan Nasional, I think should pull their weight by bringing more ideas and try to insist on certain different strategies rather than what PAS or Bersatu always use. Because as we in the early days of campaigning, one of the past youth, I think youth strategist chief was mentioning like, can you show? I mean, talking to the candidates, can you show your SPM results? And this is because they want to show that she was graduated from vernacular school, and that's the point. But it was backfired because her result was a straight A. So we can already see that even in Selangor, under Azmin Ali, PAS were just keep doing what they should come to a table and then talk about, hey, what are we going to do? PAS is not your stronghold. You might want to listen to Azmin Ali, who was the Menteri Besar for, I think, 2 terms. So you want to listen to Azmin Ali. And Azmin Ali wouldn't say this kind of thing. So why don't you just follow the lead of Azmin Ali? It's very simple for PAS to do on Gerakan, just follow the lead. That's the reason why you want to bring in Azmin Ali in Bersatu. This is the reason why, and they are not utilizing it. That's why I said there's so many missed opportunity for the Perikatan Nasional to just not leverage from all these individual that have. And Azmin Ali is not alone. There's Dr. Afif in as well. So yeah, a lot of people in Gerakan as well. Like I mentioned, like the failure to field the Chinese candidates, I think, because the margin, the majority was just around 4,000 votes. Maybe different candidates would, like I said, because previously there was no other non-Chinese assemblyman for KKB. So, that risk, I think, was not rightly calculated, and that based on the sentiment from Kelantan, from Kedah, that I think they really worked well for them, but not in KKB. So I think that was the miscalculations on their part there.
So I think for me, just a personal idea is that moving forward, Bersatu would need to kind of reevaluate its position in Perikatan Nasional, because they are dealing with PAS here. Now, everyone would like to assume that PAS is a very hardline, radical political party, but we cannot forget that at one point, under the late Nik Aziz, PAS used to work together quite well with DAP, with PKR, back then it was called Pakatan Rakyat. So, and they were quite open to the ideas of what DAP and PKR had when it comes to reforms and challenging the status quo. So, Bersatu, if they could re-establish that kind of relationship with PAS, of course, Hadi Awang is a different breed compared to late Aziz. It's a very, and they both shaped how PAS has evolved over the years. The PAS that was led by Nik Aziz is a very different PAS than it is now, the Hadi Awang. So maybe a change, because Bersatu, I think, went through quite a huge change of leadership from Mahathir to Tan Sri Muhyiddin, and then who knows, there might be a change of leadership there. PAS, I think, eventually will also have to hand the baton somehow to another leader. And PAS, I think, people don't give them much credit for. A lot of their younger PAS members are very highly educated, very, very literate. They're very well-read people who are more or less, you can still talk to them when it comes to compromises. And I think Bersatu really wants to placate a lot of the people who do have grievances against PAS, that they need to put these people more at the forefront. It's very ironic, because at one point during the whole Allah Socks issue, right, it was PAS telling UMNO to slow down with the racial and religious rhetoric here. There is definitely that potential that I can see for PAS when it comes to re-establishing a more moderate approach here. Now that UMNO is trying to do everything in its power to win back the Malay votes. Now that PAS is kind of in a comfortable position with its support base, it can play around and experiment a bit more with its approaches to become more palatable, or to be more easier to work with for other potential partners, political partners in the future. So maybe Bersatu can kind of rehabilitate PAS's image going forward. But that's just more of a scenario, hypothetical situation for me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reflections for Perikatan Nasional looking back. I mean, they were so confident in the state elections. I think, in hindsight, they wouldn't think they would lose, like we mentioned, the civil servants votes, mainly police and armies. But now I think they should learn from this. There's always silver lining and everything. And yeah, I mean, this is definitely we're gonna look forward on the next state elections, which is hypothetically gonna happen late this year or mid next year, right, for Sabah. And yeah, there's a lot of development happening as well. But at the meantime, we gonna talk about Sabah and Sarawak in the next episode. So stay tuned.